Hello and welcome. So in this session, we are going to do a very basic hands-on exercise with RDDs. It's almost like a hello world example, a little more than that. So let's see RDDs in action. So let's first look at the problem statement that we are going to solve with this very little exercise. We have a data set of visitors at a particular place from different states. The format of the data is that it contains the year, month, day, the phone number and the state from which a particular visitor visited, let's say, vacation spot. Okay. I have obviously masked the phone numbers because we don't need the phone number in this case. And our target is, the use case is to count the number of visitors from each state so that you kind of know that how many visitors are visiting, this place from, different states. So that's a very, very simple problem statement that we are going to solve. And what we are going to do is we are going to make use of just the Spark shell in this exercise because this is our first hands-on exercise. So we are going to just use the Spark shell. We are not going to write a full-fledged Spark job and then submit it to the cluster. So we'll just solve it using the Spark shell. Spark shell is basically nothing but, kind of a development environment for developers. So the logic that we are going to use is we are going to do three things in order to solve this problem. First is we are going to read the data from the file and we are going to convert it into a Spark RDD. Then we are going to apply one transformation on this RDD where out of all the columns that are present in the data, we'll just pick one column, which is the name of the state, right? This transformation will give us a new RDD, and then we will apply one action on this new RDD to count the number of rows for each state, basically for each value in that RDD. All right. So with that, let's go to our hands-on machine. So this is a virtual machine that I have where I have set up Spark. So let's first look at our visitors data. So if I just do a head on this visitors.csv, it has year, it has month, it has day, then the phone number which has been masked, and then the name of the state. So it has a few hundred rows, and based on that, we are gonna basically try to figure out how many visitors are visiting from each state. So let me go to this another window where I'm gonna run my Spark shell. All right, so we have our Spark shell available with us. So Spark shell actually by default gives you an object of Spark context. When you are writing your Spark jobs, you will have to explicitly create this object. But in case of Spark shell, you get it by default. And the name of this object is SC. So as we discussed in the logic part, first thing that we are going to do is we are going to read the visitors.csv file here and create an RDD out of it. So let's say we name the RDD as visitors. And the way to create RDD from a text file is you use the Spark context and then you use this method sc.text file, and then you provide the path of the file. So the path for me is home SelfReflex all right. So once you execute this command, what it does is it basically creates an RDD from this file, right? And the next step in our logic is to basically convert this RDD into another RDD using a transformation which only picks the column which contains the state, right? So if you see, there are 5 columns and we are interested only in the last column, which is the state. So the way to do that is we are going to use the map function. The map function, what it does is it basically lets you give some logic or a function which can be applied to each and every row within an RDD. So let's say we are creating a new RDD called states from our visitors RDD. And how we are going to do that is by applying a map function. Inside the map function, what I'm going to do is I'm going to supply the logic, which will basically pick just the fifth column. So this is the Scala syntax to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to explicitly convert every row into a string. And then I'm going to do split function on the comma. This function will basically split all the 5 columns into different values. And then I'm going to pick the last column, which is indexed at 4, right? Starting from 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The last column is the state name. So if you look at this line carefully, what I'm doing is I'm supplying this logic to the map function. What this logic says is if input is X, which is in this case each and every row, then you basically split that line at comma and then pick the last column. So when I execute this statement, it gives me a new RDD called states. And this RDD now just contains the name of the state in each and every row. So it will have as many number of rows as there were in the visitors RDD. But in the visitors RDD, each and every row was actually the full row from the visitors.csv. In states RDD, each and every row is just the name of the state, right? Now is the time to basically apply an action on this states RDD, which will give us count of appearances of each state, right? So let's call it result, and it should be a states RDD dot an action. So the action that we are going to use here is count by value. So count by value is an action which basically will count appearance of each and every value in this RDD, right? So if, for example, if a particular state is coming thrice, it will just combine those 3 rows into one and it will give you 3 count for that particular state, right? So once I execute this statement, it basically gives you the count of each and every state in that RDD, right? So for example, Haryana is appearing 14 times, Himachal Pradesh is appearing 8 times, Maharashtra is appearing 8 times, Delhi is appearing 10 times, and so on. One important thing to notice here is that these 2 statements where you were applying the transformations, right, they were within the context of Spark. In fact, the third statement as well. But what happens is, so your visitors was an RDD because you created an RDD from visitors.csv. States was an RDD, which you created from visitors RDD. But the result, this variable, this is not an RDD anymore. When you apply an action or on an RDD, the results of that action are transferred back to your driver program. So we'll see it in more detail when we write a Spark job. But in this case, it's very important to understand that result is no more an RDD. You cannot apply any more transformations or actions on this variable. This is a Scala variable. Basically, it's like a data structure which contains your key value pairs, where key is your state name and value is your count. Okay, which means this is not distributed anymore. When you had visitors, you had states, they were like distributed data structures, RDDs, but result is not an RDD anymore, right? So this was a very, very short hands-on exercise where we looked at how RDDs are actually, used to distribute your processing. So obviously we had a very small visitors.csv file here, but imagine a file with billions of such records, right? In that case, Spark will help you parallelize that processing. So this processing where you applied this action and this transformation, this will be actually done in parallel on many, many machines, on as many machines as you have available in your cluster. All right, so that was mostly it from this hands-on exercise. I'll see you in the next lecture where we are going to delve deeper into more hands-on exercises and we are going to write some Spark jobs. Thank you very much.